Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here today. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us. We've got an amazing session ahead of us today for you. So just a little bit about how these webinars operate if this is your first time joining us on one of these iOB business webinars. Okay, so we'll go through three core topics as we always do. And in between each of the core topics, we will take a brief pause to give you a chance to jot down any questions that you may have for us, which will be answered at the end during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And we also take these little pauses to give yourself a chance to catch up and indeed jot down any notes you might wish to take as well. All right, so if you would like to ask questions, you can do so in the grey Q&A box at the bottom of the screen there. Otherwise, we will continue throughout the webinar. All right, so any and all questions relating to business marketing, the webinar itself, even more than welcome. So please don't hesitate to ask. All right, so without further ado, let's get ourselves kicked off for today's webinar session. So you won't be able to see my face anymore, but in just a moment's time, you should see the presentation that we have up on screen there for you today. All right, perfect. So if I could just have a very brief confirmation, please. Can you hear my voice okay? And can you see the presentation that we have for you there up on screen okay as well? All right, and once I have that confirmation, I will know that we're ready to get kicked off for today's webinar session. Okay. Oh, good, Ben. Thumbs up. Fantastic. Okay, so today's conversation, how to develop a winning mindset, okay? A very, very powerful tool to have when you're running a business, all right? So let's get stuck into it then. Your presenter today is myself. My name is Ben Porter-Smith. I'm a professional business coach, and I specialize in working with small businesses, just like many of the people and business owners on here today, okay, to help them achieve stability and growth. And finally, embracing feedback and continuous learning. Okay, so as we go throughout today's webinar, once again, we are going to take a brief pause. We will give you plenty of opportunity to ask questions, so please feel free to do so as we go throughout today's session. All right, now beginning with cultivating self-belief and confidence. All right, so let's get started then. Overcome your self-doubt by ridding yourself of self-limiting beliefs. Okay, so a very, very big part of cultivating our self-belief and confidence here is really making sure that we are doing everything reasonable within our power to make sure that we are ridding ourselves of this self-doubt. Okay, now one big way that we're going to overcome this sort of self-doubt that we suffer from in business, all right, and many of us entrepreneurs, many of us business owners, we do, okay, we all suffer from similar things when it comes to not necessarily fully believing in ourselves, or not necessarily, you know, believing that we can actually make this business thing happen. Okay, now one major thing that we have to do is overcome this self-doubt by ridding ourselves of the self-limiting beliefs. Okay, so a self-limiting belief could be described as something that you're telling yourself internally as to why you can't do something or why you won't be able to do something. Okay, now the reason that this is so destructive is because we begin to, if we're not careful, live by these self-limiting beliefs where we feel like, you know, I really can't do this. I'm really going to struggle. I'm really going to not be able to do this or not be able to do that. A self-limiting belief is a very, very powerful thing, and not necessarily in a positive way. In fact, not in a positive way at all. Okay, so overcome your self-doubt by ridding yourself of these self-limiting beliefs. You have to let them go. Okay, the negative inner thoughts that you're telling yourself, you have to get rid of them. Otherwise, they're going to come back again and again and again, and it's going to be something that you find very difficult to deal with. Okay, if you don't begin to get rid of these self-limiting beliefs now. All right. Now, we're talking in this first topic here, topic number 1 of today's webinar, okay, about cultivating self-belief and confidence. All right. Now, what we can do in a physical, practical sense, right, an actual step that we can take is set and achieve these attainable goals, okay? They ensure that you break each goal down into these sort of easy to achieve steps to make sure that something happens. All right, so by setting and achieving these attainable goals, you'll not only begin to rid yourself of these self-limiting beliefs, you'll also find yourself building confidence over time which will begin to slowly stop the self-limiting beliefs from even coming in the first place. And you can then continually overcome this self-doubt. Okay, so you set and achieve these attainable goals. All right. And now what happens each time you achieve, and the key word here is attainable. Okay, you're not setting a wildly unrealistic goal that you're not going to achieve, because if you, in this particular situation, this particular circumstance, if you don't smash that goal, it's very likely that you might begin to develop a sort of lack of confidence or not feel so good about it because you're not actually hitting the goals that you set out for yourself. So that's why attainability here is the absolute key word. So you set yourself these goals, you then achieve these goals, ensuring that you break each goal down into easy to achieve steps. Okay, now the easy to achieve steps kick in to really help you master your ability to get through each of these goals. Okay, so if say you have to write a 5-page document, well, let's just focus over the next 10 days on writing half a page of very, very good content every single day to eventually get us to the end of this 5-page document. Okay, now 2 things you're going to achieve here. The first one is that you're going to get the task done because you've broken it down into an easy to achieve, easily attainable sort of step-by-step process. Second thing, the quality of the work is going to be very high caliber because you're only doing half a page at a time and you're checking that it's perfect. Instead of trying to hammer out 5 pages in an hour, you're taking 10 days just to go through this bit by bit and make sure that everything is perfect. So once you start achieving these attainable goals, you'll begin to feel better about your self-doubt, about your self-limiting beliefs, because your self-limiting beliefs won't be kicking in as much and your self-doubt will slowly begin to dissipate. All right. Now, every challenge is an opportunity and each failure is a learning curve. Everything when it comes to confidence, in my opinion, relates to the story that we tell ourselves on the inside. Okay. If every time we fail, we say, oh, well, I might as well not bother again. That's been a complete waste of time. I'm obviously not good at this. If that's the story that you tell yourself, that's the story that you're going to begin to believe. If instead you look at each failure as a learning curve and think, right, okay, well, that didn't work. What did I do wrong? And what can I do better the next time? Because I am going to get up and I am going to try again. And we're cultivating this self-belief and this confidence in yourself to go out and be awesome. So every challenge is an opportunity, okay? It's an opportunity to learn something new, an interesting way to overcome something. And each failure is a learning curve. It's a way to overcome whatever obstacle you might face next. It's very, very important to make sure that this narrative inside your mind is being told this way. Now, persistent effort builds mental resilience, okay? And it allows you to continually overcome new barriers. So often a big shift for people is when they're used to kind of doing the 9 to 5 and they go into self-employment. It's a very, very difficult thing because they're sort of at the beginning trying to figure out, oh, well, should I be working 8 hours or should I be working 12 hours or, should I even be taking breaks? Because I never used to get to take breaks in the office at this time of day. All of these types of things can sort of seep in and begin to affect your confidence. All right. So what we've got to do is commit this persistent effort that builds this mental resilience, especially if you're doing something new. Okay. The first time you do something new, it's going to be difficult. Second time, it's going to be a bit easier. Third time, it's going to get a bit easier over and over and over again until eventually it becomes something that you can do with your eyes closed. And not literally, of course, but it becomes something that is so easy that you can do it without even really having to think about it. Okay. So you begin to build this mental resilience. And the second thing that starts to happen is you sort of become to overcome barriers that once you might have struggled with. Okay, because it's very difficult to notice within ourselves when we are actually developing, when we are actually growing, when we are actually getting increased confidence, okay, and increased problem solving ability. All of these things kind of happen behind the scenes in your mind. And you grow and develop these skills over time so that what once scared you now makes you laugh. Okay. So persistent effort builds mental resilience and allows you to continually overcome new barriers. All right. So that brings us to the end of topic number 1. I'll see you again in just a moment for topic number 2. After we've had a brief pause, please do feel free to ask away with any questions and do indeed feel free to take this moment to jot down any notes you might wish to take as well. Fantastic. So hopefully you've had a chance now to jot down any notes. Thank you for the question. I'll get that at the end of today's webinar presentation. Okay, so moving on then to topic number 2. Let's talk about developing focus and discipline, okay? An enormously important part of running any business. And we're going to cover some key tips in here about how you can really make sure that you refine this ability to focus and give yourself the self-discipline that we need as business owners. Okay. So let's begin with prioritizing each task for the day, week, and month ahead. Okay. Now, a very, very big thing that happens in business is that we sort of get this mountain of tasks that we really, really struggle to focus on because we don't really know which one to pick. There's so many different tasks that need to get done. So a huge tip here when it comes to prioritizing each task for the day, week, and month ahead is making sure that you pick whatever's going to make the most progress. Okay. Now, typically you'll find that this is income producing tasks. As business owners, as businesses, we need money in order to push ourselves forward. Therefore, income producing tasks should almost always be the priority. Okay. Now, there are, of course, other priorities in different ways, which you should also be focusing on. But often we'll find that if we start to hit these big, massive tasks that are outstanding, that we're kind of procrastinating or delaying on, we'll find ourselves becoming more productive and more focused because it starts to feel really, really good. Right. So if you have 10 tasks in front of you, but potentially just one of those tasks will be the biggest chunk of progress that you could make out of any of them. Okay. So if you've got one major task, 9 small tasks, is a really, really productive way to look at it because we might end up getting an enormous amount of work done just by doing that one important task. Okay. So prioritize each task for the day, week, and month ahead. All right. Now, here's a really big thing that's not always so easy to do, right? Avoiding any and all distractions and staying completely 100% focused on the task at hand, okay? Now, there are practical steps to implement this for yourself, okay? Now, there's a very, very respected bit of advice in the business world, and that is essentially that every time you lose focus on a task, it takes you approximately 15 minutes to regain focus on said task. Now, you can go back to it immediately, but it doesn't mean that you'll get back in the zone, that full enhanced focus for about 15 minutes or so. So if you imagine you get distracted 4 times whilst working on a task, that's potentially an hour worth of productive ability lost on the task that you were focusing on. Okay, so what we've got to do is make sure that we're avoiding any and all distractions and staying completely 100% focused on the task at hand. It's very, very important. And one big, big way that we can do this on top of understanding the 15-minute rule is ensuring that every distraction around us is switched off, shut off, instead of what we're focused, and then we can focus on what it is that we need to focus on. Okay, so that means if you've got 18 tabs open, close all of the ones down that you don't need. Clear up your workspace, make sure that you've got physical freedom in the workspace that you have in front of you so that you're not bumping into stuff or knocking stuff off the table. Make sure that you're in a quiet room where possible, put headphones on if you need to, and just really, really nail down on that task at hand and avoid any and all distraction. Okay. Now, when it comes to discipline, routine is absolutely crucial. Okay. So making set times for each personal and business task a priority will instill these daily habits. Now, there's a huge element here where your personal routine will heavily impact your ability to create a business routine. Okay. If you lack routine and consistency in your personal life, then you're probably going to have quite a hard time creating routine and consistency in your business life. Okay. So let's say that every morning you wake up, you get your breakfast, you have a coffee, you have a shower, you get ready, you sit down, you go to work. Okay. Now, if you're inconsistent with that, some mornings you forget to grab a coffee, or some mornings you wake up at random different times, it becomes very, very difficult to then instill a routine in your business. And really what this is telling our mind is that we don't really know when we're supposed to be at work, when we're not supposed to be at work, when we're supposed to be doing certain tasks, when we're not supposed to be doing certain tasks. It just begins to mess with us psychologically and mindset, okay, in terms of our mindset, because routine is crucial in everything that we do to make sure that we are consistent, to make sure that we are productive. Okay, so making set times for each personal and business task a priority will instill these daily habits that we need. Okay, so we make sure, first of all, if we are self-employed or we're running a business or we're business owners, that we separate business and personal. Okay, so we don't do anything personal during business hours. All right, now the best way to look at this is if you were working in an office, you were working for somebody else, would you just randomly pick up the phone in the middle of the day, right? Whilst your boss or whatever is sitting in the chair next to you? No, you wouldn't. So make sure that you don't do that in your business either. Okay, you have to get great at separating the business from the personal and understanding when you're at work that you are at work, and this will massively enhance your focus. Okay, now set times for each task really comes down to understanding where you are through the day energy wise, okay, and understanding where you are through the day focus wise. So what I like to do personally is I create set times for a type of task, but not necessarily the task itself. So to give you an example on this, let's say that I choose to put admin work at the end of the day, because typically, say 3, 4 p.m., I begin to have a little bit of a dip in focus, and therefore I'm going to put kind of less important tasks towards the end of the day. Whereas when I've got very, very important meetings or very, very important webinars, whatever it is that I need to do, I need those in peak energy hours. Okay, so when I'm feeling most alert, when I'm most awake, let's say in the morning or early afternoon, that's when I put in those important tasks. So it's a great way of kind of separating your tasks and understanding when to put certain tasks in at certain points throughout the day. Now, overall, you'll not only see your discipline improve, you'll also notice healthy and productive habits forming across your life. Okay, you'll begin to feel yourself enhanced in a personal capacity and in a business capacity once you instill this discipline and this focus. Okay, now there's so much advice, so many things that we could talk through about focus and discipline, but really what it comes down to is understanding that you have to prioritize certain tasks and make sure that others do get done at some point, but do they need done right now, or would you be more productive focusing on an income producing task? Okay, now other tips to consider, okay, avoid these distractions, give yourself a quiet environment, make sure that you don't just pick up the phone or you don't just jump on social media. Stay 100% focused on a task at hand, because A, you'll do a better job and you'll get higher quality work at the end of it. And B, you'll find yourself getting it done much more quickly, okay? If you were to just focus on the task 110% right from the offset, you would find yourself moving through it very, very well. Whereas if you're picking up the phone every 2 minutes, or you're going on your social media, or you're texting someone back, honestly, it'll take you twice, if not 3 times, maybe more, the amount of time that it would have originally taken you. All right, so that brings us to the end of topic number 2. Once again, I'll give you a brief pause. Please do feel free to ask away with any questions that you might have, and indeed take this moment to jot down any notes as well. Okay, and I'll be right back with you in just a moment's time for the third and final topic of today's webinar conversation. All right, fantastic. So hopefully you've had a chance to do that now, and we will move on to the third and final topic of conversation for today then, which will be embracing feedback and continuous learning. Okay, so what we're talking about overall here is really sharpening who we are in a business capacity, okay? Making ourselves more efficient, making ourselves more productive, making ourselves more focused, more disciplined, okay? So embracing feedback and continuous learning is a big one, all right? Now, here's a big, big point. Realize that constructive criticism is not an insult to your ability. In a healthy environment, this is given to help you develop your skills, okay? So a big thing that I face as a business coach is speaking with people who have said that they've gotten feedback or criticism from one angle or another, and they feel offended or they feel upset or they feel irritated because they think, well, why would that person say that to me? Okay, because it offends them almost in the fact that they then believe that they don't have the ability to do whatever it is that they were doing or whatever it is they were criticized on. Okay, now one big point to remember is that if it's given in a healthy and constructive format, it's not a slight on your ability to get the job done. Simply, instead, it is constructive criticism to help you do whatever it is that you're doing better, okay? All of us learn, all of us need new skills, all of us need advice, all of us need feedback. As human beings, we're continuously learning, we're continuously developing new skills, new traits, new characteristics in business. And, you know, of course, for many people in a personal capacity as well, okay? But if we're talking strictly about business capacity here, constructive criticism is something that we need to begin embracing, not shutting down, okay? Because the risk that we run when we shut down constructive criticism or any kind of feedback is we risk ourselves not growing any further, okay? If we think that we know everything and we stop learning, that's a wonderful way to completely begin lacking any form of development or growth or you know, any growth to our ability and our skill set. All right. So of course there's a difference between nasty, you know, critics or nasty criticism versus constructive feedback and constructive criticism. They're two different things. So please do always remember to recognize which is which. But constructive criticism is a fantastic thing. Okay. Now, something that I think we can all work on from time to time is to refine our own ability to give constructive feedback to others and make it clear that this is how you do business. Okay. So whenever it is that we're sort of representing our brand, our business as business owners, we always want to make sure that it's very, very clear. This is how we do business. This is how we want to represent ourselves. Okay. Now, when we give constructive feedback to someone, it always has to be in a tone that is polite, it's well thought out, and it really is there to help the person, not just criticize them. Okay, that's a massively important thing when it comes to leadership, when it comes to management, is understanding how a certain phrase or bunch of words or sentence is going to affect somebody. Okay, because everybody's different. And part of being a great leader, both in speaking with clients and speaking with your team members, is understanding how to deliver whatever it is you're about to say, just as much as whatever it is that you want to say. Okay. Delivery is very, very important. So if some people you feel that you could be a bit more abrupt with, other people you might need to be a bit more gentle with. But we have to make sure we're refining our own ability to give constructive feedback as well. Practice what you preach, as it were. Speak to somebody how you would want to be spoken to. All right. But feedback is constant. It's very, very healthy and very, very useful. This is how we learn new things. This is how we improve. If somebody shows me a better way of doing something, I thank them because in the future, they're going to save me time. They're going to help me get it done quicker. They're going to help me get it done better. Okay. So refine your own ability and be aware that your constructive criticism that you're getting given, it's not a slight on your ability most of the time. Okay. If it's given in the right way. So in repeating these behaviors, you'll cultivate a healthy work environment for yourself and others, as well as continually developing a winning mindset. Okay. Mindset is everything in business. And often many of us fall into the trap of believing that in order to be a winner, quote unquote, we have to sort of know everything and we don't take feedback or criticism from anyone because, we're the best. And in order to be the best, we have to reject feedback or reject advice because, we already know it all, right? And it couldn't be further from the truth. In order to be a genuine winner and have a winning mindset, we have to be open-minded, accept feedback, accept advice, and also be willing to give the same, okay, but in a constructive and healthy way. So over time, with repetition of these behaviors, you will begin to cultivate a very healthy work environment where if you run a business, your team will feel comfortable around you. They'll feel comfortable to make suggestions and give feedback. They'll also happily, hopefully, receive the same. Okay. So it's very, very important that we cultivate these leadership traits, that we understand how to accept feedback and also how to give it. So it'll never be perfect the first time around, okay? Continually practice the skills discussed in this webinar, and you will see improvement over time in everything that we've discussed, okay? But continuous learning is everything, all right? Now, one big thing that can happen when we do become self-employed or act as business owners, that we sort of begin to lack education, lack growth, because we're not really in an environment anymore where it's sort of being given to us all the time, right? Often in an office-based environment, if you have a boss and you have a leadership team, etc., you're being put in through training courses, you're being taught new things. So when we go self-employed or we open up our own business or whatever we choose to do, it's very important to remember that we've got to keep training ourselves. We've got to keep working with other people. We've got to keep networking with other people to make sure that we're always receiving that educational advice, that growth advice, and really just helping each other grow in that capacity. Okay. So that brings us to the end of topic number 3. Now, what we're going to do in just a moment is we're going to do the recap over today's session, and then we're going to dive into the Q&A segment for today's session as well. All right. So I'm going to go and grab the questions that I have from everybody currently, but if you do have any questions that you still want to ask, there's still plenty of time to do it. So please feel free. I'm going to take a brief pause one more time to let you jot down any notes you've got to take, and I'll see you again in just a moment for the recap and then the Q&A session. All right, fantastic. So let's crack on with the recap from today then. All right. Number 1, every challenge is an opportunity. Okay. We've got to look at things this way. Every challenge is not a barrier or something that we can't get over. It's an opportunity. Okay. Number 2, prioritize key tasks and avoid distractions. Okay. Make sure that income producing tasks or other very important activities are put first and that we avoid distractions. Don't pick up the phone. Don't start a new conversation out with what you're doing. Just focus and get it done. Okay. And finally, give positive feedback, receive constructive criticism. All right. Now, as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to attend today's iOB business webinar. It's been a genuine pleasure. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. And on there, you can go ahead and book a call at a time that suits you. You'll see a little calendar like this, and you can just select the time and date. Okay, so I'll leave that link up on screen for you whilst we do the Q&A session for today's webinar. So first question, I struggle with criticism. Awesome. Okay, cool. So you know what? Honestly, that's a totally natural response. Okay, good advice here. I believe try and remove your feelings from the equation. All right, look at the facts. So long as the feedback you're receiving is polite and constructive, it's probably okay. And once again, we sort of remind ourselves of the fact that it's not a slight on our ability. They've just seen something probably that could be done better or more efficiently, and have decided to offer that advice to us. But also remember, you don't have to take that advice, okay? Remove the feelings if you can from the situation and look at it on a factual basis. Is what they said fair? Were they, making any kind of personal comment about our ability, right? Hopefully not. So with that theory in mind, do we choose to take the advice or not take the advice? All right. But remember, if you don't agree with the advice, you don't need to take it. All right. Great question. Thank you for letting me answer that one. Next question. I've never had a routine. Maybe this is why I struggle with consistency. Yeah. And you know what? Absolutely. It could well be the case, right? So a little tip here. If you want to get started with building routines, just begin with small steps. All right. Don't try and sort of create a master routine straight away that all of a sudden you're going to be able to stick to tomorrow morning. Instead, begin with small steps, add new items into the routines as you begin to develop these routines more on a sort of autopilot basis, right? So say that you begin getting up at 7 a.m. every day, great, begin with that. Once you've nailed waking up at 7 a.m. every day, add something else into the routine, and then add something else and add something else. But maybe keep them a week or two apart so that you just learn and teach yourself one new thing at a time. Okay. So that advice really goes for anything routine related, anything consistency related. Don't try and add in 15 new items into your routine overnight. Like add in waking up at 7 a.m. Just do that for a week consistently. Once you've got that nailed, it becomes sort of, autopilot. They say it takes about 3 weeks to form a new habit. So once you've got whatever you need on autopilot, okay, then introduce something else. So say then you read a book from 7:30 till 8. Then say 8 till 8:30, you go out and you get coffee. 8:30 till 9, you come back to the house, you get ready for work. Things like that. Okay. Establish a good learning pattern with each of these new routine steps. Okay. So I hope that helps. Another awesome question. Thank you for that. Do we have any more questions? No, doesn't look like we do. Okay. Well, as always, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us on today's webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again on the next iOB business webinar. Take care and bye for now.